The following program contains adult language, poor taste in jokes, racial slurs, political slurs, slants, and all sorts of things that, if you are sensitive and have a delicate constitution, you should probably go watch Teletubbies. You were warned.
Hey kids, welcome back to Roto Talk.
Welcome back, kids. So, where we left off yesterday, we got our bottoms put on. I used too heavy of clamps in the foam, but it's not going to hurt anything. It's not a big deal. We're going to make sure that this is nice and flush the way you want it. Okay? Get right into it here, because I want to get these sponsons done. Pretty. Alright, cool. Yip-de-doo. Now, the first thing you want to do is for a cleaner look, you're going to put the end caps on first. Okay? Which is like that. Okay? Now, the reason being, your top will now cover this up. You want to leave this drip edge on, like I said yesterday. Okay? Now, something that I do with these that comes from my rigger building, when you build riggers, which we will be doing quite a few on this channel once I get a couple kits. Outriggers, they're called, okay? So building this sponson isn't unlike that, all right? What I do with the end caps, I actually CA glue them. I don't do anything fancy with these because these aren't structural. By the time I put some epoxy seal there and epoxy the top on, this little cap's not going to go anywhere, okay? I marked it so it's on the inside. Now be careful. Test this on your foam. The CA glue isn't the problem. It's the activator. So I've had some activators that are not foam friendly. And yeah. This one seems to be doing okay. Starbond. Fancy. Okay. Seems to work okay. Then what we do is you're going to sand down this bit right here so your top can go on flush. And like I said, I already did the other sponson. And hopefully we get to move on to the frame today because I'm tired of building sponsons. Sponsons, even like with rigger builds and stuff, really my least favorite part of the build. I don't like building sponsons. But ML Boatworks. Yes, ML Boatworks. They're hydroplanes and riggers, obviously. Riggers, the sponsons are separate anyway. It doesn't matter. But even their hydroplanes with an ML rigger, ML Boatworks, you build, on most of them, you build the sponsons or the front separate, and they kind of squish onto the cowl, or the fuselage, I'm sorry. There we go. See, this activator ate a little bit away too, but I'm not worried about it. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to take this to my trusty belt sander. Hey, there's our trusty belt sander right there. All right, and I'm going to knock this edge down. Builds like this, I'll be using that belt sander to do pretty much. I don't know if I'll use it on the outside edge because it does have a curve to it, but this is perfectly flat and this is perfectly flat for the most part. I want that to. I'll just use the belt sander much quicker. But you always want to leave this overhang. Always leave that. So let me knock this edge down, and then we'll glue the top. Be right back. Literally 30 seconds later, not even. The thing I like about belt sanders, it's nice and flat. Whereas if you use an orbital and you try to get that down, you could make a big groove in your piece. Or hand sanding just takes too damn long. I don't like that. Yeah, see how that activator did eat it away a little bit. But if you just spray a little bit of activator on it, it usually is okay. So be careful. Take some scrap. Let's do that. Do I have a scrap? Yeah, let's do an experiment here.
This ends now.
Take a pencil. Just so we kind of know what's going on. I'm going to let that sit for a second. Yeah, it's already eating it away. Look. See that? See that, Jock Nasty Face? Nasty. It is eating it away. Now, the CA glue does not. CA glue is perfectly foam safe. Activator is not. Look at that. Now that's a lot of activator, obviously. That's what did to the backside. So be very careful. Ugh. All right, looks like a disease. Just a little bit, like I did on mine. It still ate it away pretty good. Yeah. If you're going to use CA on foam, styrofoam, you might want to let it cure the old-fashioned way. So anyway, back to the belt sander. Belt sanders are bad because you can take a shit ton off really fast, but they're nice because if you were just following straight flat lines, man, the cat's meow. All right. So here's our top piece. It's going to mate over this, nice and neat. Okay. And that's it. Now, what I did on the other one is I just put a pin in the back. Yeah, I just clamped this like I would any other skin. I didn't use pins on the whole thing at all. But everything seems to be lining up and being pretty nice. Happy days. That means I didn't screw it up too bad. All right, let's get some Roto Twister here. Let's mix up some epoxy. I need to go to the hardware store. I am almost out of denatured alcohol, which never happens. I usually keep that stuff around forever, but whatever. So I'm going to use, now the reason I always thin epoxy that I put on styrofoam a little bit, not a ton. This is 10 weight, 5 minutes, sorry. All right, whatever. I always thin it because it just, I don't thin it much. There's nothing coming out of this. Sad. Well, really not thinning it much. It just spreads better. That's really my only reason for thinning it. And it stretches it out farther. And this is styrofoam. If you have a bond, this wood to the styrofoam, that is like 8,000 megatons, ain't gonna matter, kids. It's still frickin' foam. Right? Alright, so what I do with this, zoom in here, we're gonna pour. This is all part of just being efficient, honestly. I know you probably can't see this. And obviously you need more epoxy towards the back than you do the front. Scrape some of this out. And I'm just going to do the entire top edge. That's how I did the last one. It's really not, you're not talking tons here. Okay. Take one of our cheap ass brushes that I hate. And we're just going to smear it. The Jewish boat. Smear it. Alright. Doesn't need to be a ton. You're skinning. This is no, there's no structure here. Should have wore gloves. Normally I don't wear gloves. I just spray my hands with denatured alcohol. I'm out. It sucks. Alright. Alright. See all those little hairs? Ain't that pretty? Ass. Hate these brushes. My buddy's sending me them new ones. Can't frickin' wait. Now I always do the laser side down. Just less crap to cover later. And think about while you're assembling these, if you can, make most of your edge towards one side or the other. That way you're not sanding the crap out of everything. Okay? Whatever. Now what I do is I just feel, this is a small boat, right? So I can just feel my way around with 2 fingers. Just make sure you got a touch, it's at least even. Overlap's great, but you don't have to overlap, but it has to be at least covering and even. Okay, these clamps right here, kids, what are they called again? Shit, not Mastercraft. These are the best clamps for building Wolfcraft. I got these at Menards a long time ago, back when I still lived in Ohio. And they are awesome. They tend to grab where other ones won't grab, and I bought them at Menards. I remember that. And they were like really cheap. They're like $1 a piece. I need to hit the Menards here and see if I can buy some more, or look on Amazon. Don't pay a ton for them. Hop on Amazon, see if I can find them there, because I love these things. I use them on big builds, little builds. They are cheap, they're good. They just seem to always have a good grip, no matter where you're at. Don't forget to do the back. Take out the pin if you want. I'm going to put another one on there. My theory on clamps is if you got them, use them. Right? There's no excuse. If you have a big ass box of clamps and you only put on 5 and your boat looks like a bag of ass and don't float.
Do they float?
Oh, yes. They float, Georgie. They float.
It's your own damn fault because you didn't put no clamps on. Now, if you only own 5 clamps, okay, you're forgiven. You only own 5 clamps, time to have your old lady raise your allowance. Now, I do not need this many clamps for pressure. So I make sure it's got a nice stiction all the way across. All right. I think we're good. Now, I did use 5-minute epoxy, so this will be good enough to take apart in 10-15 minutes. And then we'll stick our nose on. Can't stick our nose on yet. Nose block. You know, and honestly, on most of the... talk about overkill. Twisted liquid, if you're watching, I saw how much tape you used in your build. I'm trying to compete with you with clamps. Okay. That's a joke. So, one more. All right. So yeah, there we go. Now, I do cheat when I build my riggers, and we're going to do some boat overviews. You know how I usually once a month I do a boat build overview, where I take one of my existing boats, and I've only done like 3 or 4, and I've got 15, so we got a ways to go. I'll do an overview of a rigger here pretty soon, my gas rigger preferably, and I'll show you what I mean. But with the Zippkits and a lot of riggers, for the nose pieces, they use little wooden blocks, and then those little wooden blocks, you glue them on, and you sand them and shape them, which I don't like doing. It's too much work. So honestly, I cheat, and I usually 3D print them. I design them, I round them in my design, I 3D print them, I epoxy them on, and you can't even tell they're 3D printed. They're plastic. Works really well. But for this boat, we're just going the old school way, trying to do everything by the book.
Must be done legal-like and honest.
Stick to ways you're familiar with.
So then once this sets up, we're going to sand the nose a little bit flush, and then we're going to stick our block on. Matter of fact, I'm going to go grab the other one. Here's our finished one. Well, it's not finished, but needs sanded. Now, you can either sand this, or you can plane it if you want, but be very careful when you're planing thin wood. Splits are real easy, and if you go at an angle and gouge it, it's a bad day at the zoo, but I will be probably just using a belt sander on this. It's just faster, it's easier, and it'll actually probably look nicer than using what I usually do. I don't hand sand much if I don't have to. Okay, so these little wooden blocks. Now, one of the things that I do, like I said earlier, try to make it so most of your overhang's on one side. Like if you see this side, a lot of overhang, very minimal, very minimal. Same thing with my nose block. So my outside's going to take a ton of sanding maybe, but my inside's not. I'd rather do that than have 50% on each side. Then you really have to sand the crap out of both. I don't know. Just how I do it. I do that on every boat I build. You know, it's just, that's not really a... So you can see there I got a little stupid with the sanding. So that's going to be filler. It's okay. These holes where the pins go, that's all going to be filled anyway. You ain't building this boat without filling. Now, whatever you want to fill with, if you want to use putty, epoxy, you know, if you do a really good job of building and you don't have very much, you could probably just get away with mixing some epoxy with some micro balloons and, you know, whatever. Or sawdust works just as well. But I use my body filler stuff that I love it. I swear by it. Sands well. It's just, I've used it in every video. You guys know what I'm talking about. So what we'll do is we will, once this is cured, I'll make sure there's a reasonably the same length with block. Because I did sand the nose. I pumped the nose down on the belt sander just because, I don't know if you can see it, You got multitasking there. You got foam sticking out, little edges and whatever else. So I'll sand that so it's all nice and neat and flush. Just enough to be flush. I'll stick the block on there, and if they're within a millimeter of length, happy days. This part's the only part I'm going to be sanding by hand. This lower edge, that's your drip edge, that's going to stay there. Okay. That helps shed the water off. And then I think, yeah, and all we're going to do, we're going to sand that nose down flush. We're going to take a piece of magic tape. We're going to tape that nose block on. Literally, that's it. We're going to tape it on and let it sit. It cures up real quick. Do not CA glue it on. I've tried that before, thinking I could cut corners and be fast, but as soon as you put a sander to it, it's just too much pressure. That pine is just going to pop off. So let's give this a minute to cure. Be right back. Right, and we're back. So it's been plenty of time. We're going to go ahead and declamp. Way too many clamps. That's all right. Good for the hand exercise.
He's got a lacing of tiger's blood in him.
Yeah, some people get it other ways. I get it by using clamps. All right. So now we're going to take this over to the sander, and we're going to level this thing out. So you got a little bit there, foam. Yeah, be right back. All right, so now all we've got to do, we leveled it off with our sander, and then all we're going to do is mix up some epoxy. I'm just going to use a cheese cut, very tiny amount. I'll show you how I do this. Nose pieces are easy. Just give yourself a smidge. No big deal. Alright. Mix it up thoroughly. Making cookies. Alright. We're just going to smear it on there. Not but a peanut. Now, how I do this. Okay. So I take a strip of tape. I always buy the 2-inch tape. You can buy 1 inch if you want, but for clamping purposes, 2 inches more all around better. And you want to make sure you're level. And don't worry about the glue adhering to the tape. You're sanding the hell out of this thing anyway. And we're just going to do that. See? It can be a little bit crooked. I'm going to put a clamp there. It looks like a little bit of a weak spot. All right. No big deal. All right, so we're going to do that. Hey, come on. Okay. Make sure you've got a nice good seam, nice and tight. We'll let that cook for a minute. Be right back. Kids, it's been a hot minute. Here we go. So that's what she looks like raw. All right, it's all glued up and ugly. And here's a quick rough sand. I haven't done a good sand on it yet. You can still see little JJ fingerprints on there or whatever. Rough shape the nose. Need to hand it out by hand. Still have our overhang. I'll take a wood block and make that a little bit sharper there, but it's an overhang. And it turned out very, very nice. We'll putty these holes up. But I do my body filler and putty after assembly. I won't whip it out and mix it up and whip it out and mix it up and mix it up and mix it up 50,000 times. I'm going to put the whole boat together. Where it needs filler, we fill it. Okay? Unless it's in a really hard place. Like these, it would be easier to fill these when it's not on the boat, on the side. So, yeah, maybe I will. I'll just take some cheapo wood putty and do those just to fill them up. But other than that, turned out really nice. Nice and flat. No rockage. I like it. We'll sand this one down later. And then tomorrow, we get to start on the fuselage. Well, maybe not tomorrow. It might be Friday. Got a big day tomorrow. I have a huge project at work that just started up, so it's kind of sucking up a lot of my time. But either way, the next video tomorrow or Friday is going to be the fuselage, the square part of the boat, which I can't wait because building sponsons bores me. But they did turn out pretty neat. Very cool process. And we don't have to put pour foam in this boat because it's got flotation. Okay? Very cool. Now, if you've ever built one of Zippkits riggers, electric riggers, or the gas ones, actually, it's the same premise. They have foam inside the sponses, and I've built hundreds of those things, of Zippkits, but they're all just square. And you just shape them with the sander. Well, they're not square; they're kind of trapezoidal type of thing. But you don't have to use the foam cutter. But yeah, pretty interesting. Very solid, but very light. Very light. All right. So until the next time, kids, which will be tomorrow or Friday, keep dry side up. Ah.
Tournament begin. Don't give up and don't give in. Strength to rise up, strength to win, strength to shake the world from losing.